You're tuning in to the Black Hollywood Live Network, featuring news, interviews, and commentary on all things Black Hollywood. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is Black Hollywood Live, 100% real, featuring in-depth discussion on movies and the art of filmmaking. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host for Black Hollywood Live, 100% real.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You're watching Black Hollywood Live, 100% real. I'm Daryl Kristen. Here joining me in the studio as well is Siobhan Hughes,
Hi.
Tiana Hobson,
Hey guys.
and Courtney Stewart.
What's up, everybody?
We are going to be doing our first show today, and it is the celebration show, I'll say. It's our launch show, and we're going to be reviewing The Butler. Lee Daniels, The Butler.
Lee Daniels. That right.
Lee Daniels.
That's right, Lee Daniels, The Butler, because there
Butler.
was some name changes there, so which we'll get into that. All right, well, first off, let's talk about the film.
All right.
What was your overall first impressions of when you first saw it?
My first impression was, okay, no other movies need to be made this year because this is taking everything in the Oscars.
Wow.
Oh,
That was my
wow.
initial, and then I had time to think about it. and then I was like, okay, maybe, it's a great film. Maybe getting in there, my initial reaction was like, yes, huge. And then once you have time to kind of let it sink in, I started seeing, little holes that I didn't like necessarily. But overall, great film, well-rounded, great cast.
So
great
1 to
director.
10, what are you giving it?
I'm giving it a 8.5.
Okay.
All right.
You're impressed,
Okay.
Courtney?
Well, I was impressed. I think that my first reaction was sort of just moved to stillness, if that makes any sense. Like, I didn't quite know what I felt about it. It was I think it was very well done. Forrest Whitaker, to me, did wonders in that movie. But I think overall it was a good movie. I think there's definitely some spots after the emotional subsides and just looking from a film perspective that there were some things that weren't the best thing ever.
Like what?
Well, I guess that's what
You'll
we'll
get into
go
that later.
into.
Okay, I got you. I'm
But,
jumping ahead.
But overall, I thought it was very well done. It told the story. It told an interesting story. It told a very dramatic and emotional story, and I thought it was pretty good.
Siobhan?
I really liked it. I had some issues with the fact that it was going to be a longer movie because I usually can't, even if it's good, I usually can't take over 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I didn't even notice it. So once I finished wiping the tears from my face, certain images like caught on to me, like that moment when Cecil first is buffing the shoes and he sits there with his legs sprawled out and looks up. And then there's another moment like that kind of closes it up the story of when he's older but he's exhausted, Certain little things like that, which I would love to go see again, just so I could catch more of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was an excellent movie. Here's my thing. I love the films that come out that are like that are those timepieces that we really get to learn and understand what's going on for people who may not have lived during that time period, or they did live during that time period and they want to, just see a good film about that. But my only problem is that I sometimes wonder, are we going backwards by consistently having these type of films and showcasing these things when we're trying to move forward with a lot of other things? Do we need to keep showing the past? When I say that, so Courtney's looking at me already. I'm saying that people need to know their history. Let me get that point across. People need to know their history, but in the same regard, are we just? I feel like sometimes we're not able to move forward by showing certain things of the past continuously. But overall, excellent movie. It should be Oscar nominated for sure, and I would give it a 9 out of 10 if I had to rate it myself. But we'll get, since Courtney is ready to bite my head off, I can already tell.
What are you talking about?
We're going to get right into kind of the overview. But before we start, I want to just make a note that if you haven't seen the film, we're assuming that you have seen the film, but if you haven't seen the film, we are going to be revealing a couple things, so we don't want to spoil it for you. So just keep that in mind as you're watching this premiere show of 100% Real. All right, first up is the overview for the show. Now, you know, it was based off of there's a lot of it was based off of a true story, and basically the film was created by Lee Daniels. It's a American historical drama film directed by Lee, written by Danny Strong, who we know is an actor off of Mad Men,
Buffy.
Buffy.
Yes.
He's also an HBO Emmy Award winner as well. But it features an ensemble cast loosely based on the real life of Eugene Allen. It stars Forrest Whitaker and a couple others, which we'll get into a little bit later. But it's basically about the life of Eugene, with the new character name of Cecil Gaines, and his 34-year tenure serving as the White House butler. The film was produced by Laura Ziskin, and also who we know from Spider-Man, and it also had another assortment of different producers as well, which I'll name. We have Pamela Ois Williams. She's also from the Spider-Man as well. Buddy Patrick. We have Cassian Elves, who wrote and produced Blue Valentine. Danny Strong, which we mentioned. And of course, Lee Daniels was a part of it.
It's also notable to say that was it Laura Ziskin?
Yes.
She passed away from breast cancer,
Yes.
3 weeks before shooting began.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah,
Yeah, this is her last. Yeah,
that's her last film, and she
last
didn't even
film.
get to see it.
She did not get to see it, but they definitely represented her very well in this. So we'll also I want to get into a little bit about Lee, which Lee is a pretty talented guy. We've seen some of Lee's films in the past. He was also the director for Precious, which obviously we saw did amazing. And with this film as well, Lee wanted to really focus with Danny on the strong history of Eugene. So what we found out in this film is that it really takes a turn further on in the film as far as the life of what Eugene experiences while being the butler. And for those of you who don't really know a lot about Lee, Lee is a 53-year-old casting director who casted such films as Purple Rain, one of my favorites, Under the Cherry
He's
Moon.
always gonna throw Prince
I always got to throw Prince in there somehow.
in the conversation.
I always got to throw him on. He moved on to directing in 2005 with a film called Shadow Boxer. Then 2009, award-winning Precious, of course, which I just mentioned, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. He followed that up with 2012 steamer The Paper Boy, starring Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron.
Very good movie.
Very good
Very
movie. And he's
interesting
also
movie.
rumored to be in talks to be making the Janis Joplin biopic.
Yeah.
So that could be very exciting as well. Danny, as I sort of mentioned a little bit before, he's a Emmy Award-winning actor, and he won an award for HBO's Game Change. Danny was hired to write the film in 2009. He actually was hired before Lee was even attached to the project. It's the film is actually based loosely off of an article from the Washington Post on Eugene. So I think that just those two combinations obviously created something that was spectacular and unique with the film. Now, as much as we've talked about loving the film, there has been some controversy associated with the film. I'm going to read a couple of those things as well. One of the first things is the title. Initially, it was just entitled The Butler, but they have recently changed it to Lee Daniels, The Butler. And the reason for that is because there was a film by Warner Brothers in 1916 that was titled The Butler, and they did not want the titles
You would
to be.
so get those confused.
You would so get those
so
confused.
easy to confuse them.
So
What's-
easily.
What's more confusing, sorry to cut you off,
That's okay.
is that it's not the first time that a film has repeated a name.
Yeah.
If you look at Man of the House in 2005 with Cedric the Entertainer, he starred in that, but Jonathan Taylor Thomas starred in one in 96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were two different houses who, put those movies out too. So I think that whole lawsuit thing was just
What was
Warner
that
Brothers
really
being a big
about?
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
They
was
just wanted a
real?
little
What
money.
What was really
about?
behind that? Was they mad because they didn't have the rights?
It's possible. I wouldn't put it past
They got
them.
outbid for it.
Right.
Well, the MPAA had to mediate the actual deal, so they just, they just recently came out of that. So it's crazy. Drama. That was one thing. Another thing is the character played by Mariah Carey. A lot of critics were saying that they did not believe that in the movie she would have actually been in the field because of her complexion.
I thought the
I
same
thought the
thing.
exact same thing.
I was like,
Feel, girl.
you know, and I did think about that
you doing
at
out here?
first,
Yeah,
but
come on.
However, it wasn't necessarily slavery time. They
It-
were essentially sharecroppers.
Yeah.
So it's not completely impossible that that would be the case.
it's not completely impossible, but it's a little bit far-fetched.
It was-
I
Yeah.
probably believe that, you know, it was a little bit far-fetched.
There could be reasons why she wasn't allowed in the house. Like the wifey of the evil man
Yes.
Or maybe she
did not appreciate her being in the house.
She could have been, you know, someone who was stealing from the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's totally possible.
Got
There's
kicked
lots
out
of
because
reasons
of
why
that.
she
Lots
could be
of
in the field.
reasons, But
Another controversy was Jane Fonda being cast in the film because basically about 41 years ago during the Vietnam War, Jane had a lot of things to say about the war and was very anti-Vietnam War. So it was rumored that it was going to be a boycott because Jane was in the film playing Nancy Reagan.
Lord.
well, one movie theater owner in Middletown, America, he refused to put the movie in his theater because she was in it because he fought in Vietnam and felt like, you know, what she was doing back then, you know, he didn't want her.
So just because Hanoi Jane is in in some movie, like, is it just that movie
No,
specifically,
any-
or any movie that she is in, he will not
He
play?
has not
Yeah,
played a
yeah,
single
yeah.
Jane
He'll
Fonda
lose money
movie.
because of that.
Well, hey, you know.
That makes no sense.
Hey, you know,
You want to be dumb, be dumb.
right? Strong points made. You know,
Yeah.
Make your point.
make your point, and you
It's
make
your
it
money,
by
boo.
yes, his money, and
He's got his own subtle way of making a difference.
he's got his own sort of way of making a difference.
Well, you made the news, so I guess it's working.
There you go. So we don't know what your name is.
Also, another piece of controversy that happened was something recently during the opening weekend for the film. It was being shown in a theater in Washington, D.C., and what some are speculating was some racial profiling that happened because they upped security opening weekend at this particular theater just because the butler was being
They
shown
was
there.
scared we was gonna
They were
riot.
scared the black people was going to have an
See it, we
uproar.
gonna
They're
go
going to have an
crazy.
uproar.
Oh my God.
You know how we people be in the theater, just be talking to the screen,
Right.
and they scream out loud.
Right, you know, we
like
get
you're in
all
church.
we get all
Yeah.
crazy up in there, right? No, but so that was another controversy that happened. And the last thing is that Ronald Reagan's son actually has a lot to say
Yes,
about the
he
film.
does.
He has reportedly said that he's unhappy with the depiction of his father in the film. His name is Michael Reagan. He's unhappy with the depiction of his father in the film because he feels like his father's perceived as a racist, and he said that his father was not racist at all. This is a quote that Michael had to say in reference to the movie. The real story of the White House butler doesn't imply racism at all. It's simply Hollywood liberals wanting to believe something about my father that was never there. He also said, despite what Hollywood's liberal hacks believe, my father didn't see people in colors. He saw them as individual Americans. If the liberals in Hollywood and Washington ever start looking at people the way he did, the country will be a lot better off. Well, you know. And then he had this to say about Danny Anley. He said, "You've taken a great story about a real person and real events and twisted it into a bunch of lies." He said he met the real butler and knew the real butler and didn't believe that a lot of these facts were true.
I don't think they're trying to say that the facts were completely true.
They
They're-
said it loosely based on this.
I mean, if
article
anyone
that's
read
in
the
Life.
article that
Yeah.
this is based off of, too, there was nothing really in that article about Eugene, his life. There's a few anecdotes of cute little bits that he said in there, but there's nothing for them to really base
Yeah.
this on. They just saw a story there, and they were like, "Hey, Hollywood,
Let's
you
do
know, we
this."
can make something of this, and you know, put it together and fictionalize." things.
Well, I don't really understand what he's talking about in terms of how he's being viewed, what his father is being viewed as racist, because I mean, I didn't really. And apparently, they're saying that they're implying that they were basically invited as like a prop or something like that to
Yeah.
the ball. Was that the only reason that he's
I
saying
think
that?
that's a lot of
That's
it.
what
yeah.
it was.
That's the major reason.
It was
Yeah.
so very subtle. It's just funny. I don't know. Apparently, he had some issues with his father. Like they weren't really on great terms.
They
Yeah.
weren't.
The majority
Yeah.
of their
Yeah.
their
That's why.
lives.
Yeah, that's why I found it interesting that he was defending him so much now.
Yeah.
You know, because he's been in the news previous years talking about his father and how he had beef with his father. So maybe it's just the legacy.
He
And
just wants to be in the news again.
maybe he just wants to be in the news again. But yeah, but I agree with you, Siobhan. I didn't leave the movie thinking like, oh, Reagan was
He's a
racist.
racist. No.
That wasn't top
I just
of
felt
mind
like
for
it was
me.
the culture of that place that they were tokens. They were
Yeah.
like, sorry, they were the token people that got to come to the
Right.
dinner, but that didn't necessarily make them racist.
Yeah.
But we have that debate, racist, prejudice, whatever, back and forth all the time.
Exactly. Some other points with the film is the studio behind it was Weinstein. And they, those guys over there,
Just be
they run everything in
doing it.
Hollywood.
I mean, he'll put his name on anything. It's like on
but
everything.
it's often
But it's
great,
always
the
great.
good
It's
stuff.
always great.
Yeah.
And one thing I will give Harvey, I've seen him on interviews with Lee's promoting the film. He really has been pushing the film with people, and he's been defending a lot of things that people have criticized about the film. So I do respect that. He's not just a face and a name in the shadows. He actually has come forward with Lee to promote the film.
And he did a great job spinning this whole title controversy issue. That could have ruined this film. They spent all these weeks promoting it as the butler and then having to change it at the last minute. But he really kind of got the word out there that this was happening and this was an ongoing thing. So people were still aware of the situation.
Yeah.
So it didn't affect sales at all.
Yeah, that's true.
It's still
sure.
open #1.
Yes, it did.
And as you guys know, the film premiered August 16th. It was shot in New Orleans, Louisiana. Production dates were June 18th, 2012 through April 5th, 2013.
Wow.
Filming dates were August 6th, 2012 through October 7th, 2012. So that actually I thought it would have been a longer period for that, but I guess not. Running time was about 132 minutes. So we saw a great film. And we saw we see now the procedures of what they needed to do to put that together. Another thing about the film is that the audience target was obviously a mass audience. I think that anyone can go see this film. You can take your child there. You can go as an older adult, and you will be able to experience and live that portion of history. But yes, so that is like just some couple overall type of things. Why don't we get more into some of the character breakdown and reveal of some of the strong characters in the film? That Tiana, you have that information.
Yes, I do. Yes. Well, thank you, Daryl. So of
Not
course,
to put you on the spot,
yeah.
Tiana.
Not to put
But
you
get
on
that
the spot.
information out.
So of course we start with the core, Cecil's family. We have Cecil Gaines, played by Forrest Whitaker, as we said. Gloria, played by Oprah. Lewis, his son, who he has the major storyline within this film is their kind of differences of opinion, is how I will put that. And then we have his younger son, Charlie, who's played by Elijah Kelly. Oh, and Lewis was played by David Oyelowo.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Oyelowo.
I did a lot of research to figure out how to say that name right.
That's good. That was good pronunciation.
Yeah, that's
Yellow.
He was in Red Tails.
He
yes,
was
he
in
was in
Red
Red
Tails.
Tails. And
He's British.
yes,
British,
he's British.
yes.
And I want to talk about the fact that he is 36
Yeah.
years old and played the younger version
Yeah.
of
Like,
himself.
When I first saw him there,
Yeah.
I was like, well, wait, that's the guy from Red Tails. I know he's older than
Yes.
that. And I was like, good for him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You
Like,
got
good for his
range,
people
brother.
and his
Right.
agent and his manager that were able to get him into that room and say,
He can do
He
it.
can do it.
He can
Yeah,
do it.
and we will say that that's not CGI because Brad Pitt, to play a younger version of
Oh,
himself and
Benjamin
Benjamin
Button. Yeah, they did do
they
that.
did the CGI thing. He drank a lot of water and he got 10 hours of sleep every night.
wow.
Wow.
And took out like salty foods and he
Wow.
was just eating better for himself, to make him look younger.
Oh, good
And so,
for him.
what they say is right.
I
Black
might
don't
have to try
crack.
that regimen.
Yes.
It's the 10 hours of sleep that's kind of hard to.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Who can pull that off?
Yeah, I don't know
That's
about
the
that one.
hard
Well,
part.
when you're an actor and you are doing films and you work for 20 days out of the year,
Well, that's
I think you can
Your
afford
schedule
to-
might allow that a little bit more.
Allow it.
Right.
A little bit of freedom. But back to the family, I thought that Forrest did a great job. That his character is very strong, a very strong written role. He was quiet but mighty, because a lot of his scenes are spent. His relationship with all the presidents that come in to play here. He's not talking much to them. He's just kind of a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
One of the things that who was it? The Annabeth Westfall, who trained him, played by Vanessa
Okay.
Redgrave. One thing she always told him was it should be as if no one else is in the room. So, I thought that for what he had, he brought a lot to, he still had a presence in the room, even though he wasn't supposed to. Forrest's performance just, made you very aware, and that it was very well played by him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to talk about the relationship between Cecil and Lewis, because that seems to be the main factor of tension. They go throughout for a span of his whole life, kind of arguing. We have Lewis, who's, young and rebellious, wants to go out and actually be seen, whereas Cecil's like, no, we're supposed to, quietly march our way up, which is something that MLK says to Lewis in the hotel room at one point. So I just thought that the conflict that they kind of created for those characters was a good way to intricate a lot of the civil rights matters that were happening at the time, because even the scene where you see Lewis setting up for the White House state dinner, and at the same time Lewis is down at school and it's the lunch counter. That scene was so, it was a lot of cross editing, and you see the differences of they're living in the same world, but they're experiencing two completely different worlds. And that was such a huge thing in the time. These kids were down there, and the SNCC kids, they were getting spit on and yelled at, and that scene, to me, I broke down, because it's one thing they read about this kind of stuff happening in history books and whatnot, but it's a completely other thing to actually see it happen, and to be the actors who were there to portray it, having to spit in someone's face. I would have cringed at the thought of that.
Well, I saw this report with Lee Daniels, and he was saying that in one of the scenes, it was the Freedom Rider scene when they were attacking the bus, that he had actually told the actors to end the scene, and no one heard him. And he said that he really got to experience how it might have felt to be in that situation, because everyone is in their serious acting roles, and they're attacking all the chaos is going on. And he said that he really felt the energy and the hate at that moment, because no one heard him say stop the scene, and it continued on, and he really got to experience what it might have felt like if this was actually happening.
And even Yaya Alafia, who played Carol, talked about when she was getting spit on, and she had a visceral reaction to it, and had to leave the room and throw up. She had to get air and go throw up. So it's intense. It was intense for sure.
It was definitely intense. And it's one thing that Lee did great portraying throughout the film, because there's, countless times throughout this film that we had to deal with hard situations like this, that just came out great. And then we have Gloria, played by Oprah.
Yes.
Oprah's back. I just wanted to say that. I love that she can disappear from acting for so long and still come back and have such a great performance. Her character, she was an alcoholic, she was a cheater, but regardless of all those things, she was still very loyal to her husband. She stood by him when Lewis was getting out of line at that family dinner. She, smacked him. She's got that backhand on her. She slapped a lot of people in this
She
movie.
did slap a lot of people in the movie.
She's got that backhand down. And for not having kids of her own, that's saying a lot, because, moms usually have that strong backhand.
That role for her is like, I don't know, it's like a treasure chest of great things to do when you're an actor. Like, there's so many amazing moments, and you can pull things from your own life and I can tell she did that, because everything she did was so real and so authentic, and it blew me away. It was a really good role.
It was perfect for her. I mean, I'm a fan of Oprah's, and I love the fact that you saw just such a different side of her too. Like, I forgot it was Oprah. I forgot about it being her at that point. And Lee Daniels has said in an interview that he was really nervous at the beginning, because he was like, is she going to be a diva on set? And he was like, she was the most humble person to work with throughout the film.
It's funny, because everybody was talking about, oh, she disappears, and I'm like, there's no way Oprah's gonna disappear. Okay, there's no way she can be Sophia again. Like, it just can't happen. And at first, like in the beginning, I was kind of still caught, like I was waiting for it to happen. And it's funny, because at the last scene when she passes, and she's talking about the granddaughter and the granddaughter's name, and oh, she looks like you, and I had a moment where it's a very similar story to my own grandmother, talking about one of her grandkids, and she's talking about the girl and how she doesn't look, she's not that cute, and then he's like, oh no, she looks like you, and that was my click that I realized I stopped thinking about Oprah, and I don't know when it happened, but then I was like, oh my God, that's like my grandma right there, and that's my grandma right there talking, and then but it's Oprah, and I totally she had evaporated for me in that. Her persona, all that is Oprah, which I don't know how she pulled that off, but she definitely pulled that off.
And I gotta say, when they did the '70s scene, when she had the
the
afro,
afro.
Oprah was looking good with the fro.
Yes, and she had her jumpsuit.
She had a
on.
jumpsuit on.
I
The
was
matching
like,
one for her
okay, okay.
I was feeling Oprah then.
Yes, she looked awesome in that. And then we had Lewis Gaines, who's played by David Oyelowo. We already kind of talked about this. Great performance, I thought. You know, he played himself from 16 years old all the way through to being this, you know, very well earnest politician. I thought that the growth that his character showed was probably one of the most, it was the most obvious growth, because you saw him go from, you know, the youthful child who's like, oh, I kind of want to go to these meetings, you know, and then you see him be a Black Panther, and then you see him, you know, realize this isn't getting anything done, and I need to find a different way, and so he goes into politics and takes care of his mom and dad, you know, as they're getting older. It reminded me a lot of my dad, because you know, you have to have a good son like that, and regardless of the past that him and his father had. You know, he was still able to, they made amends by the end, and he was there to take care of his dad, took him to church every day. And I just thought that the growth of that character was, although it was the most obvious growth because it's right there in your face, he's clearly growing up. It was still a very deep and meaningful growth, because he took us on this journey with him to grow. And then I just wanted to talk about the presidents a little bit, because there are some faces in there that I wasn't expecting to see. Caught me a little off guard. Robin Williams as Eisenhower. And, you know, one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about in this film was that it was kind of too star-studded. Because there was a lot of roles where, you know, you didn't necessarily need, you know, you didn't have to have Mariah Carey play the mother who didn't speak at all and, you know, isn't really a part of the film. It could have gone to, you know, some young actress who was trying to get her start. But in the roles of the presidents, I didn't find it that distracting to have it as, you know, people who we know. You know, it was like, oh, Robin Williams, I'm seeing you serious and playing a president. And I thought he did a great job, because after the initial shock of being like, is that Robin Williams? You know, it kind of went away and you're able to get past it. You had James Marsden as Kennedy, who kind of looked a lot like a young Kennedy.
You know what? To me, he didn't. I was like, that's interesting casting. They didn't look similar to me at all.
See, I thought the interesting one was John Cusack.
Oh yeah.
As Nixon,
As Nixon. That was the one that I was kind of like, if it hadn't been for the nose, I wouldn't have.
I didn't really even buy into that at any point. I was just kind of like, man.
But I looked up some old pictures of Nixon when he was younger in that age, and he did embrace that look a little bit when I saw those older pictures. Not later on, but definitely when he was younger. And they have the guy who actually did the makeup, or a lot of the makeup and prosthetics, was Matthew Mungle. And he said that it was difficult for him because of the weather there to keep a lot of
humid.
It was
It
hot.
melts off your
it was hot. It
face.
would melt. So it was a
Summer.
challenge to really get that makeup and latex and silicone on the actors. So you know, but he did a good job.
I will say though about James Marsden as a JFK, I don't feel that I physically saw JFK, but something about his energy and his spirit captured it for me, and that's why it seemed to work. Because like upon like thinking about like looking at the pictures, I was like, they don't really blend to me. But something about the energy that he had, especially when they were watching all the things happening in the South on the couch, and he says, you know, I finally can see what you guys are really going through. Like there was something that he grabbed in that moment that made it like, oh, I could totally see him.
Well, James said that when he was preparing for the role, he listened to a lot of recordings because he knew that his voice was going to be like the key factor to people believing that he was JFK. So he listened to recordings on his iPod all the time, got his little mannerisms. He did his homework.
Yeah. And one president that's been getting a lot of slack for his role was Alan Rickman as Reagan. A lot of people didn't like it. They said that the accent was a little too mixed. I kind of agreed because I was like, I love Alan Rickman. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, but yeah, I didn't find him that believable as Reagan. I felt like he was squinting the whole time, and it was kind of forced.
Right.
You know, I felt like he was
Really
looking-
trying.
really trying to hold
hard.
it.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Yeah, that was.
See, I thought he was adorable. I was like, oh, look at Alan. I liked it.
I love him as an actor. I think he's great. This role, I wasn't fully buying it.
Yeah.
But
I kind of agree with you. I wasn't
Yeah,
fully buying
I wasn't
it
fully
completely.
I feel like he got the like comic relief that we're all supposed to like. There's all those stories about Nancy and how she had to deal with Reagan, and I kind of feel like he was almost that cartoony version of what we would imagine he is
we-
through
yeah.
Nancy.
Through Nancy's
so
eyes.
that's why I was kind of like, oh, that's really cute.
my favorite president though was Liev Schreiber as President Johnson
Yeah,
on
he's
that
good.
toilet spitting out orders. Although they did say, you know, he never sat
It's
on
not
the
true.
toilet.
I know.
Asking for
That
his
was one of the
prune
first facts I
juice.
looked up. I was like, is that true? And they were like, no,
Like,
it was made up.
I read something different. They said that there's no proof of it, but someone said that he did use it as a form of intimidation,
I would totally
like to
buy
bark out
that.
orders. I don't know.
I don't know how that's intimidating.
Well, it
thought you
matters
were
on what
gonna know.
matters on what
Yeah.
the smell was. It could be intimidating.
I don't want to think about that. But I think that for all these guys, you know, only coming in for probably a day to shoot all their scenes,
Yeah.
you know, great performances overall by everyone. There was a couple that, you know,
Like who? Tell us.
Liev was my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's just a great actor who I'm a huge fan of anything he does. So,
Is there anyone who you didn't care for?
mostly just Alan Rickman.
Gotcha.
But I love him. So it's nothing to knock against his boots. or anything. I'm not trying to start nothing.
We'll start no stuff, won't be no stuff.
Start nothing,
We'll
won't be
start nothing, won't be no
Yeah.
stuff.
And then just I want to point out that, you know, some of the other faces that you saw in there, Vanessa Redgrave, Alex Pettifer, who played the young man who raped Mariah Carey's character, Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy was
Yeah.
James Lawson.
He was great, I thought.
He was
Yeah, he did
great.
He was really good.
Danny Strong, the writer,
Yeah.
was actually the Freedom Bus journalist
Yeah.
in there. And then Nelson Ellis as Martin Luther King.
Which I love.
Yeah.
I'm used to seeing him dolled up and as Lafayette.
It took me a while, though. I can't lie. For you, anybody who watches True Blood, obviously he plays
Yes.
Lafayette, and I'm so used to him in that character. It took me a second to like switch it to have him be totally different. You know,
Really?
it took me a
Because
minute.
going into it, I didn't know he was playing.
I didn't either.
Because
I had no
that's one
idea.
that I didn't know, and I was like, oh my god!
Yeah, I didn't know.
But he had all that good training.
He did.
He turned into another whole person.
He did. He's a strong actor.
That was not Lafayette.
That was not Lafayette. I thought Minka Kelly did a good job as
As Jackie O.
Jackie O, and one of my favorites was actually, ironically, even though it had a lot of controversy, was Jane Kennedy. I mean Jane Kennedy.
Fonda.
Jane
Jane
Fonda.
Fonda.
See what's on my mind? Jane Kennedy. Jane Kennedy should have been in the movie too. No, Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda was she was excellent. I mean,
thought
she embraced it. to
Yeah,
me.
she embraced it. I didn't recognize her at
Yeah.
first. If it hadn't been for a hint of hearing her voice, I might not have known who it was playing Nancy.
No.
Yeah.
It was also cute just to see, like, when they initially came into the White House, how they were introducing themselves to the staff, and you saw little John, you saw Caroline. I was like, that's really cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it was really great to see all these historical moments because it's, I mean, like I said, it's stuff that you read about. I think it's also something that it's hard to grasp in your head, you know, and I don't know what today's youth is learning in school, if they're learning as much about civil rights as, you know, used to be back in my day. But, you know, it's kind of a great history lesson for everyone, and it's something that everyone should go see once you're over 13 because it is rated PG-13. I'm not saying take your
I love you with
7-year-old,
your parents.
but, you know,
It
once
might be
you're
a little bit intense for a
it might be
7-year-old.
intense for a 7-year-old. But, you
When
know,
I said mass audience, I didn't mean like 5 and under.
Everybody, all your toddlers.
And I mean, I think the only storyline within this movie that I kind of had a problem with was Gloria cheating with Terrence Howard's character, because I just didn't feel like it really served a purpose in the long run.
I think it did. I think it established like a strength in the relationship that they could still come, because it wasn't talked about, like he knew, but they didn't
So
talk
that,
about
that
it.
was my question, really. Did, it was implied kind of that he knew, but did he really, really, really know? You think?
He knew.
Because when he
Yeah.
made the statement after Terrence Howard's character was killed for having another affair,
Low down
he
dog.
made, I forgot the exact quote, but it implied that he may have known the way even Oprah looked in the scene, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was just what
I
the,
think he was supposed to know.
he was supposed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know. Okay.
I just wanted them to maybe not confront, but maybe give us more than
A little
just
fight? You want a
yeah,
little fight
more
over
than
Oprah?
just what they gave us with it,
Right.
because you
Fight over
bringing it
Oprah.
up, you show them together on the couch when when Gloria's trying to end things with him, but then you never really saw anything much before that or much after that. It was just kind of thrown in there
Yeah.
Yeah.
without much explanation.
Yeah.
That's true. But I feel like it was sort of her like coming into womanness moment, because the relationship was not necessarily something as a person that I feel like she just hadn't been able to venture into the worlds that she wanted to because of the restrictions of the place she had at the time. Like, her husband was doing what he needed to do to keep the family. She had done her best to raise the boys. They were, growing up, doing whatever they needed to do. And she was a vibrant, energetic woman that needed something. And she grabbed maybe the wrong thing at the time. And eventually, like, once she came out of the drinking, and you sort of saw those evolutions for her, I think it was just sort of our moment to see that she had faces too. Like, she had things that she had to pretend she was fine with, that she was fine that her husband only worked, and because it was supposed to be okay because you were black. It wasn't the best of times for us.
Right,
And
right.
she worked at the Excelsior Hotel, I think, where that's
Yeah.
where they
That's
met.
where they
So she mentioned how her mom at the end, when she goes, my mom would have been proud of me for choosing you or whatever, because you've taken such good care of me. And I feel like at that moment in time, she's supposed to be okay with just being taken care of, because it could be so much worse for her.
Yeah.
But she wanted something else, and she had to make her way through to figure out what that else could be fulfilled with. And that's sort of why Terrence was the like in there, out of there kind of thing, because it was never really a thing for her. It was just feeling a space for that moment. And I feel like
That's right.
that's sort of how that storyline kind of does feel like it's just dropped
Just
in
dropped
there.
in there,
But I think
yeah.
that's the point. Like, it was supposed to be filling a space for a moment. It wasn't working no more. She was like, dude, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did appreciate, even though outside of the affair, but I did appreciate that she stood by her husband in a sense, even with the kids. Like, she had her husband's back in that regard. She didn't want them disrespecting her man, and that was nice to see. It was beautiful, beautiful black
Beautiful
love.
black
Beautiful
love.
black love.
You don't see a lot of.
All right, so thank you for that nice little wrap up there, Tiana. Now we also have some stuff with the opening numbers and the estimates of what they were expecting the actual numbers to come in as, and we have that from Courtney.
Yeah. So the estimated budget for this movie was $30 million. Well, guess
a lot
what,
of dough.
guys?
Huzzah.
Guess what, guys? It opened at $24.6 million.
Wow.
And it took number one in the box office the week that it opened. And not only did it stay number one for the second week and beat out all kinds of movies like Jobs. Sorry, guys. I shouldn't mock that, because I'm sure it was a great movie. I haven't seen it yet. But it also beat out like another big budget movie that was supposed to come out the second week, which everyone thought might topple The Butler, was Mortal Instruments. That didn't go
Oh,
down.
yeah.
do it.
No.
Didn't do it, guys. Didn't do it.
Twilight
Didn't do
era
it.
is done. Twilight era is done. Movies like that
It's
will
over.
not work
It's
anymore.
a wrap.
I must say that it gave me hope for our souls in this country. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, The Butler beat Mortal Instruments. Praise
That's
the
great.
Lord. We are not dead in the brain.
great.
But as of Labor Day weekend, which also was further proof that this country is not dead in the brain, it still beat out One Direction's movie.
Yes.
So it took Labor Day weekend.
Is that, yeah,
And it's embarrassing. I literally watched this because on Friday, the One Direction movie was beating them. But then by the end of the Labor Day weekend, they had just skimmed past them by $2 million.
It was getting good reviews, though, that One
It was
Direction
getting, of
movie.
course, I mean, oh God.
I'm
Nonetheless,
just saying.
It's just to say the tween population is nothing to be messed with.
Oh, no.
So the
For
fact,
sure.
and that's who's all gonna go see
see the One Direction movie.
But thank God, while they were seeing that, their parents went to go see The Butler.
Butler.
The
Yes.
Butler, and brought them in. So as of the 3rd of September, they've brought in an excess of $79 million. So you guys, they don't double.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
they
is great
passed it.
considering this
Yeah.
is like an independent film.
Yeah.
Technically,
Yes.
it's 41 producers on it, who
Technically.
all raise it. They're all making bank off of this.
They are doing quite well, and critically, the movie has the critics have been all over the board. I mean, in general, you're not going to get critics to all agree on anything. The one thing that they do seem to agree on, however, is that Forest Whitaker was superb, and they think that he broke his Oscar curse. I was like, really? Because he won the Oscar 2006, and they haven't been apparently all that excited about his performances since then. So they believe that this year he finally found his footing with this movie, and Forrest also has 2 additional movies coming out this year, one of which is Black Nativity, which is supposed to be very, very good for him.
Ooh.
He's singing, y'all, later on this year. But I thought it was one of the more interesting in terms of the critics. Lots of them had lots of different things to say in terms of Lee Daniels' directing. And I feel like everyone has a very special opinion about Lee Daniels and his directing.
Yes.
Obviously, the biggest pan is that it was melodramatic and it was so obvious, and like he made those moments unnecessarily huge and dramatic and ridiculous. And I tend to disagree only because I feel like that history, especially that portion of our history, is crazy dramatic in ways that we can't even imagine.
sure.
So I feel like the bigness of it was warranted but it's also interesting that on the other half of that, for instance, I believe it's the New York Times mentioned that he has a very special genius in the way that he connects public affairs to private experiences, and the way that he made their home experience so intimate and so personal and so small, but still say so much. So I thought it was cool that even though, yes, it's this grand epic of all these crazy things that happened across the decades of the country, in their house, we still felt, at least I felt, the family dynamic going through all those wild experiences, but in a still small kind of way, because they were like people I knew, people that my grandparents knew, and we could see that. So in their criticism of him, they at least seem to tout the fact that he was able to pull that off. So there was some balance. Though his ratings are all up across the board, but 82% of audiences vote to go see it. So
I mean, they even got a good rating on Rotten Tomato, and Rotten Tomato doesn't give too many good ratings. So that says a lot.
That says everything. And I will say that the coolest thing that I read in terms of critiques, so to speak, of the movie, Alice Walker wrote a blog about it. And she was talking about an experience of her own after she sort of went through the story, and how she spoke to the fact that her mother had a similar story of rape situations with the women and growing up, and how you have to understand that your brothers can't even do anything for you. And literally her grandmother would have to run home from church. They would all disperse. The sisters would disperse to not be raped by white men. And their brothers just had to walk and try to, help them get home because they couldn't do anything. But in the end, she sort of wrapped up her whole blog and commentary on the film, speaking about an incident. She was doing some charity work in the Gaza area, and they weren't able to get into wherever they needed to for a variety of reasons. And there was an artist that was working with them on this project, and he had written made these hats for them that said "Stay Human." And the quote that she remembered that, and it brought her back to the butler, and she said, "The ability of our parents and grandparents, our ancestors, to stay human in situations where it would have made more sense to go mad strikes me as often miraculous. But yes, they stayed human. That is what the butler did." And I read that, and I thought, that's exactly what I felt when I sat at the end of the movie, sitting there like, I don't know what I am. The earth kind of moved, and I don't really know what I feel, but it's that moment when you that literally should have driven every single one of them insane. Everything that they went through, like, they all should have been nuts, but somehow they still function, still work through their families, and obviously gave birth to all of us today.
Very true, yes.
It was pretty awesome. Now, as far as the cast, and there was lots of fun things that cast members had to say and things that they did about their roles. Obviously, there was lots of chatter about Terrence Howard and his sexy times with Oprah.
Yes, he was very public about that.
He was very public about her Tiggo Bitties, which Oprah hilariously discussed on the Regis and Michael, or not Regis, the Kelly and Michael show, which was hysterical to me that Oprah was sitting on stage with them talking about. She's like, like, I guess they are pretty big. And I was like, oh my God.
Yes, honey.
Yes, they are
Yes.
pretty big. But so Terrence felt that he, had some serious chemistry with Oprah. He was feeling Oprah in every
Stephen better
way.
watch out.
But can I say this? Did anyone else feel this way? From the press before I saw the movie, the way it made it sound was like I was going to see this really hot and heavy
Yes.
sex scene.
Yes.
And I never got
I
to
never
that.
got
I
it.
never, we never
Yeah.
saw that. So I was like, well, where's all this hype?
Yes.
Where can I see the tickle bitties at? You know what I mean? Like, no, I mean, I'm serious. We never really
Well,
saw
I had
it.
a feeling that they're probably wanting to add something like that, but
Or was
as
it on
I'll
the cutting
discuss-
floor?
Yeah,
Like-
I'll
Cutting
discuss it
floor.
later. But like
Okay.
there is, Oprah is Oprah, and if she
Yes.
doesn't want to do something,
She ain't
she's
gotta
not
do
going
it,
to do
y'all.
it.
Right.
So for that, that love affair, why it felt so short is probably because they did maybe have other plans, but
Yeah.
It-
Because
Yeah,
that is
no.
also one of my complaints that we were talking about the movie. Like, even not so my issue wasn't so much that it was short. It was that last moment that they had, and he was spinning the hangers, and she
yeah.
was
Yeah,
That was
she was
cute.
smoking.
Yeah.
It was all kind of sweaty and dirty
I
looking.
was all
Yeah.
sweating for Terrence because I was like, "Oh, you could eat me!" Like, "Oh my God,
Oh,
I
whoa.
love you." No, like, but no, like,
Oh, whoa.
okay, I shouldn't have. I didn't mean it like that. I meant like.
I knew it.
100% real, y'all. That's why we are Black Hollywood.
I didn't mean it
100%
like that.
real.
I meant that he was. That
Black-
did not come out right.
Just
I'm gonna tell
Wow.
your man.
Wow.
I'm gonna tell your man.
Terrence Howard could eat you. We get it.
Wow.
It's cool.
Okay.
I
We can
just-
just end the show on that note.
Oh my goodness! Oh my God! I just meant that he was coming for her real
Yes.
hard.
Yes.
Okay, your choice of words right now are just we just need to
Maybe
just
your mind is just
Maybe-
right
Maybe
now.
it's just dirty.
Maybe.
His acting was bringing the passion in that moment.
There we go.
And
There we
I
go.
felt like there
There
was
it
a
is.
divide because I didn't feel that same passion. As much as I loved Oprah in this role, that's the moment where I felt the least positive about what she was doing because I felt like after hearing what was coming and then knowing Terrence Howard's performances of the past, I was like, this is about to be some good, like, what's about to happen?
Yeah.
And I feel like there was a block with Oprah. Like, I felt like she was smoking and she was into it, but she wasn't into it enough with him. Like, there wasn't, when he was spinning them hangers, she should have been a little bit dizzy for a moment and then came, like, she
Right.
she didn't completely go there in that moment.
Well, I wish that they would have made Terrence Howard's character older. I think for me, the age difference distracted me a little bit with that relationship. But I mean, maybe that's why
it didn't kinda
really feel right
pan
for you.
out.
See, and I kind of felt a little bit differently about that because I thought my interpretation of it was that Oprah's character when he was like spinning the hanger was that she was having an affair with him, but like she really was never emotionally attached to him in that like it was something that she was doing because she felt neglect from her husband, but it wasn't like one of those affairs where she's like, I want this guy, I really want to be
She
with
was
him.
never seriously
It was-
thinking
Yeah.
of leaving her
and
husband.
never, yeah, it was
No.
just something that happened. So I felt I was okay with the disconnect in that regard because it was almost like it was just something she was doing.
I was okay with the emotional disconnect, but I was also feeling a sexual disconnect. Like I didn't feel their sexual energy in the way that I thought based on everything everybody told me. And even
Right.
sitting in
Yeah.
that
Right.
moment, because there just weren't, because they didn't have that many moments to
No, they didn't.
generate it. So and that ending would have been the moment where we're like, she would have been like, this is hot and all, but boo, I can't.
Right.
Like, and I don't feel like I got that as
Right.
much as I would have liked to. But yeah, anyhow, I'm sure Siobhan has lots more stories.
Even Terrence with his missing tooth.
missing tooth.
The missing
That's
tooth.
an adorable
There's always
story.
something going
Yeah.
on with his teeth
face.
and movies.
Yeah.
You know, his face was paralyzed, half of his face, and he got it to work again by like shocking this side of his face. It's a true story.
Wow.
Wow, I didn't know
He's
that.
kind of wild.
He's a weird
He's so-
person.
He's a different person.
He's different.
He's a different
He's
person.
blessed.
He's
Yeah.
blessed.
He's
tough.
blessed.
He makes it
It's
work.
special.
Let's just say that.
It works for me,
Yeah.
apparently. But that's fine. That's all good.
He could
So,
eat
It's all
me.
good. Yeah, that's the statement of the day. I like I said, we don't need to do no more review.
Take anything
Like,
away from this.
if you take
that
anything
away.
from this
Siobhan,
review,
what do you have?
moving on.
I can't really go on
Siobhan.
that right now. So how do we feel about racism today? Do you think it still exists?
No.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Of course
Yeah.
not. What are you talking
What
about?
kind is racism?
What is racism? So many different definitions of that.
Right.
But it kind of well, it's a this movie comes out in a good time. Like Emmett Till, I think that murder was brought up in the
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people are kind of comparing the Trayvon Martin case with Emmett Till. Emmett Till was 14, and he was killed just for. He probably didn't even flirt with a white woman, but that's what they said.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Looking at a
Allegedly.
white world, yeah.
Looking, yeah.
Well, he not only was killed, he was brutally
Brutally
murdered.
murdered.
Eye
Where he was
gouged out.
he was unrecognizable to his
Yes.
family.
And his mother actually wanted an open casket because she wanted
people
the
to
world
see.
to see what they had
Yes.
done. And Trayvon Martin, of course, 17. So just with all this stuff going on in our community and in our world right now, it's like the Zimmerman case, people are still so upset about that. And I think all of that helped with the numbers and having people come out and wanting to support this movie. Also, do you guys know of a woman named Marissa Alexander from Jacksonville, Florida?
No.
It's a part of the whole. It's been compared to the Zimmerman case a little bit just because they use the stand your ground
Okay.
thing, and she stood her ground, and is now going to jail for 20
Jail
years.
for 20 years.
For firing.
But she didn't shoot anybody. She
Yeah,
fired
warning
warning
shots.
shots.
girl. Yeah.
Who did
So-
she fire the warning
I
shots
think it was
at?
her
Abusive husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so for people who say that racism doesn't exist anymore, it might not be as open, but it's still there.
Well, whoever says racism
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore must not go outside. Because, or look at the news. Stop and frisk. We talk about this
Stop
a
and
lot.
frisk, yeah.
Yeah.
We're still battling over things like that. So,
I mean, Oprah in Germany with
Oprah,
the bag.
Oprah in the bag store.
Yeah.
I don't understand
store.
that. Everybody in the world knows who Oprah is. Everybody knows what her face looks like. Come on.
Well, maybe she had a ponytail and a hat on.
She
Maybe.
could add her sunglasses
And no
on the
makeup.
ponytail and no makeup because she can look a little different.
She looks a little
sometimes.
different without the makeup.
They said it, not me, Oprah.
I love you anyway,
she
honey.
will shut this down.
I would still marry you. Don't get it twisted.
Oprah,
We could still be friends.
Oprah and Courtney's words, you could eat me. Gladly.
But there was an article in Parade magazine. Whitaker says, I've had many incidents in my life of racism. I've been thrown on the ground. I've been frisked. I've been arrested so many times I couldn't tell you. I have no need to talk about it. Lee Daniels says that he actually will send his white assistant to go and get a cab for him, hail one, because he still can't get a cab in New York.
Yeah.
Winfrey says, Oprah Winfrey, she says, oh, sorry, hold on one second. There we are. All right. She said something about how we're not being, are more people judged by the content of their character than by the color of their skin? Yes. Is everybody judged by the content of their character? Absolutely not. So
That's actually
That's
Really good.
that's really deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it.
Like I just started
That's a nice
thinking
way
about
to
that's a
make
nice
that. Point.
So, yeah. And then some things were brought up about what was true in the film and what wasn't true. Eugene Allen, let me see what. First time, I'm so sorry, guys. He was indeed a plantation houseboy in Virginia, and he did go to find better employment. But he did not have two sons. He only had one. The tie that he was given by Jackie O was actually given after the death of JFK, but he never wore it. He just framed it. Let's see else. The wife, Gloria, she didn't have an affair. She wasn't a boozer.
Yeah, she was not alcoholic.
was not
It
an
didn't
She was
matter.
not a boozer. And he started working as a pantry worker in 1952 and was promoted to butler years later. And that's pretty much it for that. But we can get into some fun facts. Now. About Terrence Howard and the tooth. So apparently Lee Daniels is really good friends with Terrence Howard. So he was going to offer him this role. He's like, I really want you to do this role, but you're just too damn good looking. So he's like, okay, all right. So he took out his tooth, which I didn't know.
He took it out.
No, I mean, I think it was
It's a cast.
Oh, it's
Yeah, I
already-
think it's a
yeah,
cast.
he didn't like take out his real tooth.
I was like, wait. I was like, that sounds terrible.
Craft. No, he just pulled it out just to get the role. Also, Cuba Gooding Jr. was going to play Cecil, but they switched it around, and Cuba Gooding now says, I'm so glad they did that because I could not see anybody else other than Forrest Whitaker playing that role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have seen Cuba in that role. I mean, it's hard
He's
because it's
good.
like now I feel like Forrest really stamped that role so
Yeah.
much. So, you know.
No, it was, and Cuba Gooding was awesome in his role.
Yes.
I mean, he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, he's another one.
That's his
Talk
Oscar
about
curse.
Oscar curse.
Yeah, right. Snow dogs, anybody? Let's see what else. Yeah, and then Yaya, of course, her wanting to vomit after getting spat on, which I'm surprised I would have lost it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have made it through that scene if I was her.
Yeah, they probably would have used that in the film if she had thrown up though.
I think about the girl that spit on her though.
I know.
Feel
I
bad
mean,
for her, too.
I just can't imagine like having to be that evil.
Hi,
to
nice to meet you.
somebody.
I'm about
I'm gonna spit in your
Like
face.
and like spit
Right.
for real, like deep.
Yeah, that was.
That
It
was-
was like it was a
It was a
just
loogie
a-
of nasty.
It was a big.
It
It
was
was a
thick.
drippy. You know, the one that like hangs on
They
your
couldn't-
chin. You
I
know.
would have been like, just nice to meet you, but don't drink any milk for the next 3 hours, please. Just
Stunt
don't.
double.
Let's see what else. So
I have a couple too,
Yeah.
but I'll let you
No,
finish
go.
yours. I saw that Oprah. This is Oprah's first on-screen film role since Beloved. Was
Yes, it
another fact.
is.
Liam Neeson was actually considered to play Lyndon Johnson. And if I'm taking some of these, let me know.
no. Keep going.
Let's see what else I thought was interesting. That Nicole Kidman, Hugh Jackman, and Zac Efron were originally cast as unspecified roles in the film.
It's funny since Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron had just
Paperboy.
worked on
Paperboy. That
Paperboy.
would be why.
There are 41 credited producers, probably a world record for
my goodness.
for this particular film. Let's see what else I have here. They also said that the character of Cecil Gaines was based on. Well, we know that already. Yeah, Gloria's vanity mirror in the bedroom are two pictures of children. One of them is a photo of Oprah as a child.
What?
Yes.
Nice. Let's go
I thought
back
that
and
was a good
find
one.
that.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back to the film and like
Yeah.
slow it down
Where
and
is
look.
that?
There was a scene cut out of the end of the movie when he goes to, Cecil goes to see Barack Obama. They were originally trying to get Obama to do that, but obviously that didn't really work out. So they hired an actor to do it, and they just decided to cut the scene out, which would have been great. But whatever.
I actually think it's cool that they cut it because I was
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
that when I was at the end, I
I
was like,
agree.
"Oh Lord, they got somebody playing Barack. Oh God, is it gonna be Barack? Lord, Barack, stay away from Hollywood
Yeah, I
as
think
much
that
as you
would
can
have
right
brought a
now."
cheesiness to the movie that was
Yeah.
already. It didn't need
Yeah.
it to be cheesy.
It
was
worked
a
for me
great
that he
film.
just walked, like said, "I know where I'm going,"
know where
and
I'm
walked
going.
away.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a better ending, but I don't know. Like, it still would have been really cool to see Barack Obama in a movie.
It would have been.
And
Yeah.
when they win the Oscar, he can just go right upstairs, up the stairs, and just touch the
Touch
Oscar.
the Oscar.
Like, hello, first president.
Well, it's kind of
Won
funny
an
that you
Oscar.
said that because one of the things that they had is a couple of the goofs in the scenes that no one really realized, but now looking back, you're like, wait a minute. When you're talking about Obama, it says during the Obama campaign scene on the porch, Cecil was wearing an Organizing for America T-shirt. Organizing for America was actually the post-inauguration Obama organization, which started in 2009. During the 2008 campaign, it would have been Obama for America.
Uh-oh.
They said the character of Carol Hammy, which is Yaya, had an obvious hole in her nose from a piercing,
Yes.
in which would have not been fashionable in the
Well,
1950s. The wall
looked like a mole.
They could have been a
Yeah,
mole, I
could have
guess.
been a
The wall telephone in Cecil's kitchen has a modular jack and flat cord, not introduced until the early 1970s. It should have been a round cord hand wired into the handset like the phone on the front
Who
wall.
sits there and notices
Wow.
these things?
Hey,
I mean, you know what though? I bet
that was
they-
somebody's job.
That was
though,
somebody's job.
And they
Yeah.
did not catch that.
And the last one I have is in the White House scenes from 1957. The U.S. flag is visible several times with the current 50-star pattern. At that time, the flag would have been 48 stars,
48.
as Alaska and Hawaii did not become states until
Someone counted the
1959.
stars?
That's deep. That's deep.
That's
Hard to
lot.
get
I
screenshot
couldn't
or
even see
something.
them that
Yeah.
well. Like, how do you sit there and count them?
And I think we can attribute large success due to their marketing. The Weinstein company actually did something interesting where they kind of partnered up with LinkedIn and created a contest of sorts, where when an applicant fills out their employment history, I don't know how they did this, but they can have it right next to it. It'll show like Eugene Allen's Cecil, the characters, his job history right next to them.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's impressive.
It was a contest, but I don't think it's going on anymore. So essentially, you would, by doing that, you could win like a meeting with like someone who could help you get a better job, like a headhunter or something like that.
Oh, that's cool.
And also, like as I talked about earlier, just the timing of the movie, the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. The 58th anniversary of Emmett Till, 56th anniversary of the Little Rock Nine attempting to go to school.
That's deep.
So yeah, and also Oprah, she was doing her thing, and I think having her attached to the movie really helped in terms of marketing. We all remember that on her O cover, that massive
massive
afro, yeah.
That's a cool cover.
And it's funny too because when I wear my hair as a fro, well, the other day I was wearing it as a fro, and this white woman was like, "I love your hair."
Did she want to touch it?
Yeah, she wanted to touch it, but then she was like, "Did you see Oprah with her hair like that? It was just beautiful." And I think, I mean, yes, it wasn't the most socially conscious thing for her to say, but.
But she thought she was probably giving you a compliment in her world, in mind, I should say, not world, but in her mind.
But I mean, it's bringing back that like Afrocentric thing, that
Natural hair.
That was very prominent in the movie with like Carol. Carol came to dinner. So yeah, and that's all I have for you on that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to wrap up this review, but I have a quick question I just want to throw out to everybody because I based this at the top of the show. Do you feel that this film, as great as it was, do these type of films set us back or do they move us forward?
I'm so sick of people saying it sets us back. I'm sorry, because they said the same thing about The Help. They don't stop making movies about civil wars, about the World War IIs, about whatever. Like, this is still a part of our story. Do I think there needs to be more stories about what's happening now and what our lives are like and about Black love in the 2010s? Of course. But to say that this is setting us back is crap, because the fact that Oprah ended up on that cover and that white lady said, "Ooh, that's," and then made it acceptable is proof to me that there's still something to be gained from seeing that.
Tiana, what do you think?
I agree. I think that I would like to see something else. We always are getting, credit for, stuff based on our past history, The Help and all those types of movies. I wish we could get something modern and still get the kind of recognition that a film like this gets.
Siobhan?
I think movies like this still need to be made. There are so many stories that still are not being told, and just because it happens to involve race is not a reason why we shouldn't see it and learn about it.
Yeah. Go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, in addition to that, there's lots of these stories being told, but they're not often told from our perspective.
And that's very true. My point is that I think we need a balance. I think I want to see some things that are going on right now as well, so we can learn and younger people can learn from that, as well as show some of these historic things that we need to see as well. I'm not saying we don't need to see it, but I think that there needs to be a balance, and it's not just showing the past. We also need to show what's going on in the future.
Bell Station, The Best Man. Check them out.
More of both. Let's just say more of both.
Best Man 2 is coming out in November.
Yeah,
That's right.
This is gonna be the blackest Oscars coming up.
Yeah.
Fruitvale. No.
Courtney don't think so.
I will be on the floor if these movies actually infiltrate the Oscars in the way that I would like and assume that they should. But I feel like it's gonna be another one of those what? Are you kidding? How is it that none of
They
them
do
won?
that sometimes though. They make the Oscars colored sometimes, when Halle Berry won and
And then
Denzel
they let
Washington.
Denzel
I
at
think
the
this is
same
our. I
time.
think this is our time
Yeah.
again.
But these are full-on black movies. I mean, Monster was Halle Berry and everybody else.
Yeah, but
Denzel Washington was Denzel Washington and everybody else.
That's
It wasn't
true.
like The Butler, Oprah, his cousin, Lenny Kravitz. I don't.
But if it's ever going to be a time, this would be the time that it happens. All right, well, that's the end of our review for The Butler. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in. This is Black Hollywood Live, 100% real. We will be tune in for another movie sometime soon. We'll let you know what that is. Check our website. It'll be listed out there. Where can everybody be found on social media?
at Stuart Starlet on Twitter.
Don't be scared. You're like, are you
Well,
sure?
'cause I don't know if it's-
At the Tiana Hobson on Twitter.
And Siobhan?
On Twitter at Siobhan_Hughes, and you can eat me.
We should all say that. That's how we should go out. I'm Daryl Christian. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Oprah can eat me in a good way. And no, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, 100% real.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Dario Kristen, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to the Black Hollywood Live Network. If you have questions or comments, tweet us at BHL Online or email us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. For more exclusive content, visit blackhollywoodlive.com. This has been a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.